Welcome to Industry Ignited. I'm your host, Dr. Leanne Aguilar. Today, I'm joined by Morgan Templar, CEO of First CDO Partners and founder of Get Governed, a global voice in data governance, AI readiness, and data culture. She's helped organizations from healthcare to automotive turn messy data into measurable value, and she's the author of 2 bestsellers on building world-class governance programs. Let's talk about how healthy data powers healthy AI and healthy companies. Morgan, welcome to the show.
Hi, Leanne. Thank you so much. I'm really pleased to be here. I love this topic about AI and how we're getting there and what it really takes to get to healthy AI. So I'm really excited to get to share this conversation with you and learn back and forth.
Yeah, likewise. I'm excited to learn more. Things are progressing so quickly, and I know having healthy data makes a world of difference when it comes to making informed decisions in a company. So let's get started. You've said your career pivoted during an analog era in healthcare, then moved into a fully digital world. What moments shaped your call to data?
I had a lot of really interesting opportunities when I restarted my career mid-year, midlife. It's my third career, I guess. Um, but I had this great opportunity where I was sitting on the 16th floor of an office building, and I was a data processor basically. I was doing physician credentialing, so all paper files, make a phone call, print your thing out, sign it and date it and put it in the file, right? So everything we did was on paper. And I happened to be sitting next to the stacks of all our files, and the architect came in and said, "Ladies, if you don't get this paper off this floor, you are destroying the structural integrity of this building and it will collapse." Like,
You're buried in a pile of paper, right?
literally, wake up call, get off of paper.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting. My boss looked at me and she said, "Well, how about you take this on and get us to move to digital?" And that was quite a process because there were a lot of things in the industry that were required to be like signed and dated. So what does that mean? You have to print it out, sign and date it, scan it again, and then shred it. And that was, at least that was, we were not storing it, we were just utilizing it, but it was one step at a time. And I really realized the value then of having your information in a way that is accessible to more people. We had 7 hospitals, and so we did centralized credentialing for all of them. So the information that we had, we would mail. Like every day there was a packet that went to every hospital. And once we went digital, then it was just a matter of saying, these are the records that are updated today. They're free for you to use and download and print, of course. But still, it was, one step at a time. And I really learned the passion of good data and how it works and how you make sure that you have integrity and why that matters. Because when you're in healthcare, these kinds of decisions, like, is this physician qualified to work in this hospital? That's a really big decision.
Right.
And so having that information can literally save lives.
Yeah.
And so, you really have to take every little check mark seriously. 6 steps down the road, it might matter to someone and be a life or death decision, even though for you it's just something routine. You look at it and say yes or no.
hmm Well, and it's not only having the data, but having it accessible, knowing
Yeah.
where to find it, and making sure that it's quality data at the same time. Yeah. I know a lot was going on in your life at that time. How did personal and professional resilience, balancing family health crises with career growth, inform your leadership style?
So during that time, without going into the long drawn out story of someday I will write that book and we'll talk about it on stage. But for now, I went through a year, 2003, where my oldest daughter and my husband both had life threatening illnesses. And so we had doctor's appointments and, we stopped going to cheerleading. We went to get blood transfusions, my husband's brain tumor they didn't diagnose until about halfway through the year, and then his surgery actually left him permanently disabled. But my daughters, they still, nobody in the world has ever had what she has and still never has. And so um, they just decided to try a bone marrow transplant. So at 13, like, we had to go through a lot of decision making and read a lot of data and give her the options of, these are your choices for how you continue the rest of your life. Make a decision. You're 13, right? But at the
Wow.
same time, we couldn't make it for her. She had to be able to make it. And so pulling a lot of data, bringing together the research and talking about, what are the downsides of chemotherapy? What are the downsides of having a bone marrow transplant versus staying transfusion dependent the rest of your life? And what will that mean? And what will that look like? And she'd already lived a year of every 3 days getting a blood transfusion. And she was, I think, just like anything to not have to live this way. And so she had to make that decision. We pulled a lot of data, and I really, we had a great care team that let us talk about it and understanding what you're getting into. Like, this is a big, heavy decision to put on a 13-year-old. But at the same time, when she's 30, I didn't want her to hate me because I made the choice for her, And so it did actually cure her disease. She's fine. And, we learned through that you can pretty much get through anything. I had to rely on friends. I had to rely on family. My coworkers, my employers were amazing. She would be sometimes at the children's hospital and my husband inpatient at the flagship hospital where I worked. And I would just take my laptop and go to whichever hospital I needed to be at. And they were just so good to me about that. But that was all about understanding that your network and letting people in your network help you was really an important component of doing your job right. But again, I learned if I can do this, I can do anything. So I went back later for my undergrad degree while I was working full time. And then later, another 4 years later, I went for my master's degree, also working full time, and doing, having 4 children, a disabled husband,
Yeah,
and so all of
it's a
those
lot.
things really shaped my idea that if you will say yes, you can do anything.
Yeah, so really a mindset that you developed in resilience and how to move forward powerfully no matter what life is throwing at you. And also from what I'm hearing is just the value of data that you discovered during that journey as well, not just for helping you but your daughter make, those informed decisions and which were life altering. Uh, for listeners just discovering data as a career path, what early decisions or mindsets most accelerated your journey to CDO level work?
Well, as I said, I think saying yes, like you can do this. The field is wide open, right? So data is still a relatively, a relatively immature practice, to be honest. And that's obvious in the investment in it. It's really fun to invest in models and AI and things that are going to immediately be used by the business. That's really great, and there's a lot of funding there. But when you're thinking about just like core data, your underlying foundation, there's so much to do. It's a very target-rich environment. But it really comes down to saying yes. And I learned all of that through that time of having to learn to be very resilient. I had to also learn to just say, yes, can I do this? Of course I can do this. If someone can do it, I can do it. And so, I can read, I can watch YouTube videos, I can figure this out, I can do it. And I think that has been the biggest mind shift for me was just recognizing there was nothing standing in my way. I just finished a course on agentic AI. Continuous learning forever is really what you have to do. And it isn't just about data, but it is your career in data. It changes so quickly. And like you said, I started as a secretary in a hospital, and I left healthcare when I was a chief data officer at a multi-hospital, multi-health plan system. And a very big leap in 20 some odd years. But it was all about saying yes. We moved coast to coast 3 times. We went where the job was. We relocated over and over because we had to go where the work is. And to be honest, data work it's a hard grind. And everywhere I would go, it was like, oh, good, we're starting over again. I'm
Yeah.
just going to go do what I know how to do over here. So I would just take that toolkit with me everywhere I went. And as I went, that toolkit got bigger and bigger until eventually, as I became a CDO, I had that toolkit that was really broad and really deep as well. which is fairly unusual. I didn't come into the executive level. I have no idea how operations work. I know how
Hmm.
every checkbox matters.
Yeah, right. Because it's not about knowing everything. It's really about knowing how to find information
It
and
is.
knowing how to look for that information, I would say too, because you'll never know everything. It's impossible, especially with how quickly knowledge is compounding, these days.
It's so true. I mean, I will never know it all. And I think in AI, um, and I don't want to go deep into this either, but I think there's a little bit of a chance of imposter syndrome for people. It's like with data, we know our lane, right? We don't know everything, but we know the landscape. I know there's a mountain over there. I know there's a road here, right? But with AI, which AI are we talking? Generative AI? Are we talking traditional old fashioned AI? Are we talking graph rag? What are we talking about, right? And so we each have a specialty that we have dug deep into. And it's really easy to think there's so much out there that I'm never going to know it all. Well, you know what? Yes, congratulations. You've come to the right conclusion. You will never know it all. Find the people who do. Find the
Yeah.
person who knows the thing you don't know. Bring other people's opinions in. Listen to other people's knowledge because we all bring that suitcase of tools and knowledge and capabilities with us everywhere we go.
Yeah, no, that's really good insight. It's just finding those people and those partners who can add to your data set, who bring value and expertise in areas that you don't have. Now, you often say AI eats data. What does healthy data look like, and how do you diagnose it?
I think healthy data it's a very challenging thing to say what is healthy and what is not. And part of it is because we look at data per use case. So I have a project, I'm going to need some data. So I only want this group of data. I don't want it all. I just want this group of data. So I only want to pay to clean this group of data. Well, it's data is like water, right? It doesn't just sit in your project. It doesn't just sit in your product. It flows throughout your organization. Other people are using it. And so when we think about I mean, truthfully, it is literally just the use of data and how different ways we can think about it, utilize AI to actually do things. So we also have an opportunity with AI to create that Ouroboros, kind of like the self-feeding quality. So you can use AI to clean your data that is then used by AI because that loop is not a closed loop. There are many things when I say AI, many kinds of AI, but you can absolutely use those tools, which we've never really applied before because we weren't familiar with using AI for everyone. It wasn't the solution, right? So it's not what we thought when we were first thinking about how to clean our data. So what does data look like? Good data is it has the right context, so you know what it is for the business or for the technology group. It is accurate to the best of your knowledge, and it's accessible to the right people and not accessible to the wrong people. So that's kind of when I think about healthy data, it's really those three things. I build my life around being understandable, transparent, and available. And if we make our data those three things, then quality is an easy next step.
Yeah, I mean, they say garbage in, garbage out. So if you're going to make informed decisions, you've got to have informed data. And so, really, I think it's how you package the data too, and knowing what you want to get out, uh, you know, at the end. So it's being intentional with how you collect, package, and use that data.
Part of that is that opportunity to use knowledge graph, which I'll drop here because I think it's such an important component and it is where we are going to end up, even though not everyone is on the knowledge graph train yet. I'm just making a prediction that we need to know what data we have. We need to know where they are. We need to know how they relate to each other. We need to know, all the different relationships. If you make a change, what does it impact? And a knowledge graph and an ontology teaches you all of those things about your own data. And if you don't have the right intel about your data, then you don't know the right way to use it.
Right. Yeah. So really understanding what your data is, what you even have, right, before you can use it. And that makes sense. So walk us through your gap and maturity assessment. What do you measure and how do you translate findings into ROI the business can feel?
So when we're doing a gap assessment, we are looking for obviously people, technology, and process. See, the thing we always talk about: people, process, technology, and then data. And so I will talk to people, and it starts with an interview process, which seems so old school, so analog, right? But on the other hand, it's building that trust in that relationship as you interview people and asking them everything from, what do you do with data specifically? What data do you use? And understanding their processes and why they do it, as well as what they do, and talking to a broad swath of the organization from executives down to your business analysts. They have a different perspective on what they can and can't do. An executive may say, well, of course we can do this. We have 2 or 3 projects that are working on this or that have recently come into play. And your business analyst in the business who's supposed to be collecting requirements doesn't have that view. And so they may or may not know that this problem has been solved already. So, it's important when we look at a gap to actually understand what the process is, what the data are that are used, and then how it gets utilized. Do we have the right tech stack? Do we have the right way of notating and architecting data within our technology so that it is reusable and it is understandable and transparent and available, all of those things. Because if you just focus on those things all the time, then eventually we do end up in a place where I can simply just put in a query, does anybody have a requirement that is met by this? And you can get 15 data, different data objects that meet your need. And so there are a lot of ways that we can really build things in a better way. So yeah, that's that's the main thing from that.
Unstructured data like email, SharePoint, and chats is 80% of the estate in most firms. What are the biggest risks and the quickest wins leaders overlook?
The biggest risk is you have no idea what it is. It's because a lot of people call it dark data. It is unstructured, and so unstructured really means it's not in a relational database. So it doesn't have the column and row that we would look at and system controls of a relational database. So SharePoint, email, Slack, Zoom calls, audio and video recordings, all of that is technically unstructured. You may not know what it is, but if you get a lawsuit against you, that is all immediately discoverable by opposing counsel. Every bit of your data estate, 100% e-discovery, it'll get pulled in, and then you're liable for something you had no idea you had. And it's
Wow.
often in that, that little thing of, oh, we overlooked that one little technical rule in this one department for this many years. Okay, we're now at fault. And it's often that serious, but we don't think about it because it's just the stuff we use to do business every day. It's not data. It's not in a system. And so really understanding what's in your unstructured data and being able to map it and being able to bring that into your estate, besides reducing that unknown risk, it also can help you find value, because you can start to do trending and understand your business use over time that you may never have seen before, because the only place this really important information is stored is on Sally's laptop.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not exaggerating.
Right. Right. But I think that's something a lot of businesses don't think about. I mean, this day and age with the note takers, like, I use Fathom for our team meetings, let's say, but it's just not something as a business you think about. You think about the value it brings, like recording a conversation so you can go back and take notes from the meeting and review things, but you don't think about that being a potential liability if a lawsuit arises. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, I've used Otter since 2019, and now they're in a big lawsuit about their privacy. And I read every term and condition. I'm not one of those who doesn't read it. Never did they say we're going to use your data and use it for training, etc. And so they're being sued over that, which is too bad because I've grown up with them. I've used them for so long. I'm very familiar, and so now I'm switching to something new. But at the same time, there you go. There's an example of something that we use every day. It's unstructured. All of our conversations are unstructured. Otter has been structuring them. They've gotten better and better about giving us, I'm not an attorney and I'm not part of this lawsuit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a user. And, for me, looking at all of the times that I've recorded really critical conversations because we didn't want to lose any of the context that was said or any of the action items or, any of the things, we want to be able to go back through and make sure that we really understood what was, discussed. And now that's in a lawsuit because Otter didn't protect it in that way.
Wow. Yeah. Definitely something to consider.
Yeah.
So let's talk about data debt versus tech debt. How should executives budget and sequence investments to actually catch up?
And I'm going to start a little bit to the left, but that I'm hearing more and more when we first got Gen AI. Oh, great. This is the opportunity for data to actually get updated and cleaned and ready to go. And a year or two later, I'm starting to hear, well, we just want to do AI governance. We don't want to do data governance. We don't want to do data management. We just want to do AI management. It's like, guys, you're starting to stop feeding the thing that you want. You're going to starve it to death. And so when we talk about technical debt, really that's where we haven't built up the tech stack appropriately to stay modern. And it may be that it's a big investment. We're in some technology that's no longer working, or it's just not adequate for what we need, or we just want a change because we're going to go to cloud, for example. Moving to cloud is a big reason why a lot of people update their tech stack. And so you have debt in your technology, things you've never fixed, things you've never updated, a whole bunch of updates from Informatica for the last 20 years that you didn't actually apply. And so getting that technical debt is well known. The CIOs of the world have done a good job being able to get that tech debt funded, and they have a certain budget every year, and they have a roadmap. Well, no one's really recognized the data debt because it sits in those systems, because it's part of business process that happens out here, not down here, And so when we think about, like, what is our business process? Well, I get a paper file and I look at it and then I scan it, and then I pull these 3 fields out of it and put only those there, right? So what about the rest of it? And that's part of that unstructured data. But also, we've just never recognized that it's important to take care of data. And I hate to say that because I think there are a lot of companies doing a really great job, but I also know that there are more companies that have never even started data governance, and much less data quality, and done any of the things you need to do to really have your data in play and ready to be able to be used by AI. I mean, AI it's not a magic ball, it's not perfect. You can't just say, oh, I'm just going to put an AI on that and it'll work. Well, sure, it might make you think it's working, but if your data isn't in a condition or in a place where it can be utilized, it's pointless for
Right.
the
You have
exercise.
to set it up, you have to train it, you have to
Yeah.
test it, you've got to assess the quality of it,
Yeah,
and
and we
right, you
have
have
to
to
pay
watch it
that debt back.
carefully.
Yeah, we have to
Yeah.
pay that debt back. We
Yeah.
have to invest in data because that's actually the foundation. I have some great cartoons of this where, think about your foundation, it hasn't been poured yet, and you've got a 10-story skyscraper being held up by sticks while you pour the
Mm.
foundation under it quickly. I feel like that is what I've done my whole career. I'm pouring concrete and building data foundations after the building
Before
is
the
already
building
built.
falls down.
Yeah, the building's already built. Then they realized, you know what, having this up on some bricks was maybe a bad idea. Can you get a foundation under there?
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
Let's hurry quick and make up for our lack of preparedness. Uh, so what is the simplest checklist a CEO can use to gauge AI readiness for their company?
So the very simplest checklist from that executive seat is to understand, do I have the right the right people leading this? Do they understand AI? Do they want to use AI? Are they, even if they're skeptical, they understand the need? Because if you get a good leader leading your charge who's going to say, yes, we can, that's really important. Don't give it to the person who says, this will never work and I'm not going to ever get involved, because that's the person who's your, as I call them, the mossy stone. And they are never moving and you're never going to turn them over. But find a leader who wants to do it. That's number one. And then number two is, where are you? As a CEO, ask for your executives to bring in reports. A good friend of mine, Neil Linson from Insight Logic, he has a checklist that he uses for, if you're the chief marketing officer, what are your things? If you're the chief information officer, what are your main concerns? If you're the chief HR officer, what are your main concerns? And it's just this simple little 5x5 grid. And answering those questions helps you really understand what's important and how you can move forward in a consolidated way to maximize your value for your organization.
Yeah. So hallucinations, model drift, and misuse get the headlines. What practical governance keeps AI safe and useful?
So I think that when we talk about model drift and bias and the things that we're being held accountable to, especially under things like the EU AI Act, it's really given us some guidance. The NIST framework that has given us some specific guidance. We're really looking for that consistent monitoring, and which means we know what it's doing and we know how it's impacting both the business and the technology and your AI. And so to avoid model drift, you have to understand what causes it, really. And getting a group of people together that have that ability to really think through the what ifs and what might happen and what must we do to really make this future proof. But you have to do it consistently, especially under the EU AI Act. I love it because it's not just monitoring once in a while, which is what happens often. We set up monitoring and every night it runs a job and, that's monitoring. No, it's continuous monitoring. 100% of the time. So putting an AI agent sitting somewhere where it can continuously monitor the activity and make sure that we've set up these things as bias. We don't want them. We've set up these things as drift. We need to make sure these don't happen. And that AI agent can just sit there. A person can't do it, but an AI agent can sit there and continuously monitor.
Yeah. So it's putting those oversights into place and really defining them, and then making sure they're continuously being monitored, and so they don't start drifting away, going in a different direction unintentionally. Well, right, you got to keep your eye on the ball, right? You've talked about ontologies and context, getting shared definitions across businesses and tech. What's a pragmatic first step to align language at scale?
The very first step is to stop thinking that we're going to do data governance by going to the business and saying, tell me your five most important terms and we're going to define them. And that's how we start with data governance. That time has passed. We're moving much faster than that. And so I think to be able to move forward at scale, getting an ontology that is, eventually we'll have a global ontology, and then we'll have the worldwide computer. But what we have right now is that ability to actually have a data term, understand its context, understand it might have a different context for me in my department than you in your department. But all that context means is that for me, this is the primary identifier that I use to look at this person. For you, that might mean this is the person who received the service, but I'm really looking at the service, and that's what matters. So that's not the primary for me. But we need to define it the same so that when we look at it in the model, we know what it is. So that's really kind of the gist of ontology, is getting your data definitions consistent and consistent between technology and business as well. And they're useful when you're building that beautiful knowledge graph. I love all these great AI generated pictures where, someone's holding the globe, which is all this glowing dots and lines going together, that's a knowledge graph. That is 100% a knowledge graph. And I love them because you can just like envision yourself just like being sucked into the middle of it. And it's like, oh, I need that. I need that. And oh, they need to connect here.
Yeah.
And that's really like the gist of it. You're literally connecting your data so that when I need something, all I have to say is, where do we have relationships that are family? And then all of those data fields would come up in a query, and it was all these talk about family in the context. And so it's absolutely an amazing moment.
So when you're working with a company, is that where you start? Is building that data graph?
It's not where we start, but it is something that I pitch immediately. And by pitching, I mean I make sure that this needs to happen. The key to that, which is the other thing I'm working on right now in both my volunteer and my personal life. In fact, I have a patent pending on this. But the key to that is a data marketplace. And so what I will sell to a company is, wouldn't it be great if your data scientist, if your business analyst, if your average executive, or your engineering teams could access data through the same lens, through the same portal? And that would be a data marketplace. And that's where you build an access layer on that knowledge graph, where I can just go, I can natural language process query it, I can SQL query it, I can hit it with an API, I can have it batch that flows every night out of it, and it all goes out of that single pane of glass. And when you think about that, and you think about that as a data marketplace, which is fueled by having your information already connected. And so for every use case, you're getting the same context. It's a beautiful thing.
Right. I mean, being on the same page and having the same understanding of data is critical, I would think, as far as moving business forward and meeting objectives. Right. That context, like you spoke about, is important for people to be on the same page. Where can AI help fix data quality today without creating new risks?
I think the biggest place is to look at consistency. Consistency is really easy to identify. Does your name is it spelled with 2 E's, 2 N's, and an E on the end? I mean, that's consistent, because how many ways is your name spelled in different systems, right?
Oh, right. No, my name, Leanne, gosh, you
Yeah,
never find it spelled my way.
never.
Rarely,
Yeah,
right?
and it's such a common thing, but with AI, we can say, okay, the actual truth, we've determined this is the truth. Go find everywhere that it is listed under this person and change it to the correct thing so
Yeah.
that it's accurate. I mean, consistency is really easy to manage if you look at it. Like, for example, if I find dates of birth listed as 2031, I can pretty much be assured that they were 2013 and someone just typed it wrong. And so we
That little
can,
dyslexic typo there. Yeah.
yeah, fat finger syndrome. So we can pretty much with AI find those things and just flip them, just fix it, because it's a good assumption. We've made it a rule that that's okay for AI to change. Other places that AI are useful is in deep analytics of your information, and you can actually use AI to get more context out and help you really be able to trend information that, especially in data quality, you can see over time where you've had errors, where you've identified so many tickets that have this kind of data quality. And that tells you, or this kind of data quality error. And that tells you then, this is where I need to invest in my data debt. I need to fix this because we have, of our 1,000 tickets we looked at, 450 of them had this problem. So we need to fix that.
Now, you mentor women in data and champion DEI. What cultural patterns differentiate high-performing data teams?
It's an interesting question. I've never done a diversity hire, but I have always had diverse teams. And I think that is the reason for that is because everyone is welcome here. And that's our guiding principle. Everyone is welcome here. Everyone is recognized equally. Everyone has a voice. And as you're building a team like that, word spreads. People want to be on your team. And it's a good example for others. It's not that, I'm perfect at it by any means, but, I really care about the people that I work for. I work for them. And I work to shield them. And I take the blunt blows and, put the umbrella up and shield my teams. And so that dynamic is really, it's one of trust. I trust them to do what's right while I'm taking the heat over here. I don't need to worry about whether or not they're doing what they say they'll do. And so trust is super important. That ability to also believe that everyone is welcome here, that's really important. If we don't go at it from that perspective, it's too hard to overcome. So people who are on my team feel the same way, because that's how we have to feel. And honestly, I believe the world can feel that way. It's not just in my team or in a company. And that's what, by the way, one of the things I look for in a company. It's like, is everyone welcome? But when we start thinking about that and those differences that we try to measure through DEI or other metrics around, do we have the right team? It's really, it makes us think about things in a different way than just like, you're welcome, as opposed to, let's see, you're welcome, you're female, you've got long hair, you've got brown eyes. Okay, those are the things I'm looking for. I can hire you. I don't like those kinds of checklists. I want to hire the best people for the best job. And I don't want to look at those things. And I think if we were all, if that's what DEI meant, just like stop looking, just find the right people and hire their skills and listen to what they say and understand that that's what you need, then that's how you get a diverse team. And then honoring and championing your people.
Yeah. And I know you also consult globally, and including recent work in Saudi Arabia even. What's one lesson U.S. leaders should learn from global data transformations?
I think that U.S. leaders need to understand more about the privacy aspects. Europe has led the way in privacy, and so it's a good example. But at the same time, I think globally, people realize that this is it is the next moonshot. It is the next space race. So without calling it a Cold War, because I don't think it is a Cold War, I think the world is competing to see who's going to win. And I think leaders in data need to recognize, especially in data, but even like at my level as CEO, and I have a company to think about, there are good ideas everywhere. And you have to be able to identify what your culture for your organization is going to be, and how important is privacy, how important are ethics, how important is it that we monitor continuously versus occasionally or most of the time. Those kinds of decisions have far-reaching effect. But I do think in this moment of transition into the AI age, and we're going to stumble and fall and have missteps, and it's because we're doing that 90-degree pivot whether we like it or not. The wheels are turning, and the best lesson that we can learn is learn from each other, and still make your choice, but know that it's a defined and intentional choice.
Right. I mean, we're a global economy. We work with people all over the world, and I don't like looking at it so much as a competition, but really as a opportunity to learn and grow from other people who have different insights. I think it's amazing and enlightening to hear how other people do things, around the world, not assuming that our philosophy or the way we do things is best or right, but being open to other perspectives. I think we can all benefit and all grow from that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You use a stairs, not rocket ship metaphor for adoption. How should leaders plan the next two steps and know when to climb again?
So you have to know where you're going, but in this time of uncertainty, we don't really know where we're going. We have this general idea that we're heading towards the Star Trek computer, right? And the Star Trek AI computer. Tell me all of this the answer to what kind of plant this is in this unknown world where we've never been before, you know. So we have in our minds that that's kind of the future with AI, that it's going to be ever present, and that it's going to be our central computer, our central knowledge bank. But we don't really know how to get there. And from a company perspective, that might not even be the desire. So really understanding, like, what are your actual strategic goals? Can AI help them become better or faster or cheaper or more accurate or whatever that is for that strategic goal? And make sure that you are investing in bringing the data as well as the AI along with you. Because if you just invest in the AI, your data gets left behind, and you end up with a lot of failed projects, which is a terrible waste when you
Right.
could just like do it all together. And so I think as you're planning your next couple of steps, think about um, what do you want this organization to look like in 5 years? What kind of people, what kind of activities do you really want to be paying people to sit at desks and open up a paper file and type it all in? Do you really want to pay people for that? We have computers that can do that right now. So, let's make that investment so that, as we build out a product, and actually that is another area we didn't cover, but moving to a product life cycle as opposed to just data is also
Hmm.
happening as part of this. And so as we build a product, we need to recognize this product uses the same data as that product. And so they have a shared relationship there and a shared accountability for it. And to be able to help set up from the beginning that you are intending, so that you can look across and see that you have a relationship in the information, and that you're not building the same thing twice in different ways, and that you're also getting the uplift from the work that you've done. And so it's very important to think about things holistically from that perspective.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. So going back to that, I guess the data map and where does information benefit multiple people or multiple products or processes, and how do you use that to benefit the entire company? And I mean, I've seen that where companies are so focused on making AI work or integrating AI that there's, putting a lot of time and effort without direction, and where I think it's backwards to do it that way, instead starting with the data, as you were saying, what do we have? What's the intent? What do we want to get out of this? What do we want to build? Not what can AI do, but making AI work for what you have.
Yeah.
And
And I would say that one of the things to think about is you want to move from using AI to doing AI. And that is a journey and a different mindset of thinking about. We use, like, I can use Copilot, and it fixes my grammar, and it makes sure I have a period instead of a comma, and all of those things, right? So I'm using AI. But if I'm doing AI, it means I'm building an agent to monitor a field or a rule, or I'm actually intentionally building a project around that. And so that perspective of, I use AI to I'm doing AI in the organization, that's a life cycle that we can, at a small scale, we can see.
mhm. Okay, yeah, that is an interesting mindset. And yeah, as I guess we move forward and people understand how to use it more, then they'll just start to do it as part of their processes and not just have it as like a separate tool, but it's more integrated, is what I'm hearing. Tell me more about your books. You've written a couple of books and they've shaped many programs. What's next? I know you're writing a new book.
I
Any
am.
teasers from your AI focused book?
I am. So I've written two books on data governance. The first one, Get Governed, is just how to start a data governance program. But I wrote them in 2017 and 2018, and a lot has changed. And so, well, I won't say I haven't taken them off the market, because it's not that they're wrong, but they're a place to start for some organizations, especially smaller companies that just need to dip a toe into the data life cycle. but it isn't where I think we are today. And it's certainly not where my mindset, where my experiences are today. And so I am writing that third book, which is about utilizing AI in your governance program. There's a lot of talk about what is AI governance, and no one has aligned on it yet. I, of course, have my opinion. I know what it is. So I know what it can be. And I guess that's it, is that I'm looking to where it can be. Maybe it can't be there right now because we don't have the right technology, but we should perhaps be shooting for there. And so I've just got great use cases, and I've done a lot of research on how people are doing AI governance and how they're shaping both their data landscape as well as their organizations by doing AI governance. So that is kind of where it's landing. It actually started out with talking to the CFO about data. And it has morphed over the last few years. I've done more research into AI.
Yeah. So my final question is, how can a company identify, I guess, that they need a, a data governance program, and how do you go about helping them get started on that path?
Well, the very first thing to understand is that there is accountability for managing data. And so every time we pick a piece of data up or start to do something on a screen, we have to ask ourselves, am I, and this is part of what I'm patent pending, because it's really important. Am I actually a decision maker about this data? Am I a guardian of it? Am I supposed to be making choices about how it's used, et cetera? Or am I a maker? Am I actually like hands on keyboards, making things happen and changing data in a system or uploading files? Or am I just a seeker? Am I just getting information? Am I just looking for it and pulling it down so I can use it in my business process or in my business decisions? And so whenever we think about data, and AI is the same, kind of rewriting the script from the way it has been in the past is also a big change. So data governance professionals, along with AI, have to pivot because we're pivoting the way we think about data. And yes, that is really kind of the crux of what I'm writing about, is how we make those changes. Because everyone needs to govern their data. It doesn't matter if you're 100% AI, 100% cloud, 100% paper. You have to have the rules in place that your data is governed, and that you're able to really look at it from an assurity that you've done the right things, that you're auditable, you're transparent, people can use what you've done. And so if you're thinking about starting data governance, think about the basics that need to happen and why, not necessarily the checklist of identify data stewards and set up these 4 committees, and because it isn't exactly the same today. And I think a lot of people are being very challenged by needing to change their own mindset in how we're going to govern. But you have to govern. So
Right. Yeah.
that's what it comes down to.
What it comes down to, and now more than ever, now with the massive amounts of data that are out there, as we talked about, not just structured but unstructured data, being aware of the data that your company even has, like what's in your canon of data, right? So, and then putting systems in place to manage it, to mine it, to use it for, leverage it for the benefit of your company, and for. Great. Well, Morgan, this was a masterclass. This is excellent. Thank you so much for coming
Well,
in and
thank
joining
you.
me.
I was just going to say, there you are. You're a data professional. You're ready to go. You're just going to
Well, I just
all.
know where I need to say what I need to put in place now, right? Where I need to start looking, and things I need to consider. Yeah, for my own business. Great insight. For listeners who want to connect and learn more about First CDO Partners or dive into your books and training, what's the best way to reach you to find out more?
through DM on LinkedIn. I'm only 200 or so behind, but I actually do read all of them. So if it takes me a minute to get back to you, I will. I read every one of my DMs because I think it's an important part of being part of a community. So DM me on LinkedIn. I'd love to chat. If you just need a quick mentoring session, I believe in giving back in that way as well. Of course, that's limited. Time
Yeah.
is limited, but if I think I can help or I can offer a solution, I'm always happy to. So please reach out to me on LinkedIn and follow me there. That's where I do most of my public work.
Great. And for our listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, please follow and subscribe to Industry Ignited on your favorite podcast platform and share it with others who are building their data future. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and keep igniting industry.